Well, all the various machinery here seems to be indicating that I am live. I don't need that much microphone in my life, though. Hey, Rob Currie. Thanks for that dope track last week. What's your link Reagan again? Yes, indeed. Rob Currie and the Currie Brothers with our theme, Link Ray Gun. After our Halloween theme they supplied us with last week. Very, very nice of them. Very spooktacular. We are back. It is November, and as noted, I don't know if anybody else is doing this, but I saw a thing on a social media page, specifically Facebook, Stephen Beaumont talking about the fact that he thinks the kids these days just don't know enough about Belgian beer, and he wanted to make November Belgian Beer Month, put the focus on the Belgian beers. And hey, I mean, I didn't have anything planned for November, so why the heck not? Apologies in advance. You are going to hear me doing that a lot. It's going to clip my microphone if I don't remember to turn my head away. You'll hear me snuffling a lot, and I'm not making any assurances about the quality of my taste receptors right now. There has been a cold going through the Schreier household, and I have it. The good news is I don't feel particularly sick. I'm not tired or any of that sort of malaise kind of feeling. On the other hand, I do have a bit of a runny nose, and as of about 15 minutes ago, a catch in my throat. Anyhow, as noted, that's going to happen a lot tonight. With that in mind, we might just go ahead and dive in. We got a big bottle, both figuratively and literally. If you are watching the video, you will notice this is I don't even know, is this a 650, 750 ml bottle? It's got to have a volume on it somewhere. Holy moly, it's 750 milliliters. It's a wine bottle. I'm about to have a wine bottle's worth of beer that clocks in at 8% alcohol. I might be feeling a little malaise tomorrow, but it won't be related to the cold. No, indeed. And also, in what might be a Toronto Beer Podcast first, we are dealing with a caged and corked champagne style closure on this here bottle. I do have a tulip glass Spiegelau, good quality stuff. I did just wash it, but I'm not going to make any assurances. It was sitting on the shelf for a long time. I don't reach for tulips too often, but when you're drinking a Belgian, a lot of the time, depending on the Belgian, let's be honest, Stella Artois is Belgian, ostensibly. But when you're drinking an Abbey style beer, got to drink it out of a chalice or maybe a leather flagon. Anyway, I'm going to open this carefully and hope that we don't have an explosion. These beers can be pretty active. Well, the cork didn't try and get away the instant I opened it. And actually, I'm looking at this right here. I've got another. Oh, I know what this is from. I did open this on the podcast, though. This was a caged and corked bottle. It was homebrew, though, slightly different. It wasn't a commercial beer. It's the first commercial one. High potential for surging. That's what we would call it in the biz. Here we go. Ready? Okay. It's moving. Yeah, here we go. I mean, that sounded right. I'm happy to report dead still in there. Bit of Belgian air. It smells caramelly. And bit of the old, the little mist you get when you open something carbonated. We had a bit of the mist. Okay, I'm gonna do this pour on screen. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, we can all see there, I think. Oh, there was even a bit of the mist coming out of the bottle just then. Hot damn. Try and make sure I give it a good, generous head. Yeah, okay, that glass isn't perfectly clean. Not even close, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible, friends. I didn't polish it out with a microfiber cloth, so, jokes may be on me. Oh, actually, it doesn't look nearly as dirty. I think there was just some bubbles clinging from the pour. Looks fine. Deadly clean, I would say, to use an unusual adjective. Anyhow, again, apologies for the snuffling, but it's the only way we're going to get through this, and it's going to be together. So here we go. Oh, by the way, because some of you are listening, most people who consume this podcast do it just through their ears, not video. Who knew? This is a slightly hazy, definitely not clear, honey amber color, nice fluffy white heads, dropped to, I don't know, maybe around a centimeter. It was up around 3 or 4 when I first poured it. It's being well supported though. Nice rocky head, I think is what they would call that. Very nice. All right, now I'm going to smell it with my snuffly face. Oh man, so the thing is, it's just distinctive and delightful. I don't necessarily know that blind I could have told you that this was La Trappe, which is from did I say it by the way? That's La Trappe Tripel, which is from a Dutch Trappist brewery called Koningshoeven. I don't necessarily know if I could have told you it was La Trappe, but I would have told you immediately it was a triple. So you get some big esters off of the Belgian yeast. By the way, I know it's Belgian beer month, and I just told you this beer is Dutch. That's going to happen a lot. This is a Belgian style of beer made by Trappist monks in the Netherlands. So just go with me on it. Yeah, estery, peppery, maybe a little clovey notes from the yeast right away. Like honey and candy sugar on the malts. Some wheat, probably. I think there's some wheat in here. Stone fruit. Yeah, like apricots. Yeah, totally. And maybe even a little bit like dried apricot, a little jammy. Orange marmalade, probably. Something appley, maybe, and something a little floral. It actually almost smells a little bit like an apple tree in bloom. Did I mention peppery with that yeasty ester? Clovey and a little peppery. And like literally like pepper, like what you grind out of a mill. Huh. All right, I'm going to taste it. I know I just said a lot of things, but also I'm congested. I might have gotten more on a better day. Mm, 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 mm. Hmm. Okay. So many things happening at once. Ooh. Oh. The finish on this beer is just every aspect of it is delightful, but the finish is particularly nice. Yeah. So similar to the aroma, you get I mean obviously because it's in your mouth now. The first thing actually that you become aware of is a very active prickly carbonation. I was going to try and come up with another adjective there. It's it it's very carbonated. Like very like champagne. It's very good. Uh there's also a very nice weight to the beer in your mouth despite all the carbonation. Then you are immediately made aware of the fact that that yeasty ester is definitely still there. It does lean peppery more than clovey or like allspicy. Sometimes you can get a bit of that. This is very much peppery. I like it. Definitely like dried apricot, maybe peach, some orange marmalade, which actually there's a bit of it's not like when you get hoppy orangeness. It's more like there's some bitterness, which I think actually is the hops, but I don't like I'm almost certain they're not using like Cascade or something in here that provides orange from the hop. I think that orangey note is coming probably from a mix of there's some wheat in here, I'd almost guarantee you. So a bit of that weedy tang, and then some stuff coming out of the yeast. So yeah, orangey dried apricots, but like again, orange marmalade, which also speaks to the sugariness. This beer probably has candy sugar in it or like rock sugar or something, um, which gives it a bit of a honey or like, well, sugary kind of note. And with that oranginess, I think it's kind of making me go like, oh yeah, like marmalade or like a preserve, but definitely like dried apricots, but also for sure peachy. When I mentioned that there was like something floral and it was like an apple tree in bloom, that's kind of almost touching on peachiness now, that florally fruitiness. Again, some of that floralness is probably coming from whatever hop is used in here. This is not a hop driven beer by any standard. It's quite sweet, in fact. Like in flavor profile, I'm not sure if in terms of actual sugar content, like weight, if it's sweet, um, but it is quite sweet tasting. Um, and then the finish, interestingly enough, it's quite dry, but then after you've swallowed, you get this little bit of alcoholic heat that somehow also lights up some sweetness sensors on your tongue. So you get this little bit of a sweet kind of thing. Um, This is a very I mean, it is a classic triple. Everybody who knows anything about this sort of stuff knows it's a classic triple, but this is a classic triple, for a reason. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It, by the way, if you're just tuning in, is Le Trappe Triple, Trappist beer from the Netherlands, from Koningshoeven. Uh, big, 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 big bottle of beer. Uh, so what should we how should we there's a few things we need to unpack here. This beer, by the way, exceptional, available at the LCBO. I think it was like $8 for the bottle, which when you consider it's a 750 milliliter bottle, puts it just a little ahead of my penny per mill uh, measure, which is amazing when you think that it's an 8% beer that had to come from the Netherlands, that was made by literal Trappist monks in a literal Trappist monastery. It's impressive. Um, I mean, okay, so what are you gonna eat with it? It's gonna go great with a bunch of cheeses, possibly even a Trappist cheese, like Chimay does make cheese as well as beer. I don't know if Koningshoven does. Um, but just a nice, slightly funky, maybe a little soft cheese, very creamy. Cream is gonna go well with this because, there isn't any, like, fatty richness in the beer, and so they're gonna play well that way. The other thing, Belgian triples, you got to be a little careful with the triples. You tend to do it more with like a blonde ale, but they do great as the cooking liquid in mussels. And I think I've brought up mussels a couple of times recently, but that's a genuine thing and it's very Belgian. So you could definitely do that. Pardon me. It would also go exceptionally good with like some sort of a fish or a seafood dinner instead of a wine. If you were thinking of like a white wine, if you think about it, a lot of the flavor things that I just referenced, like peaches, orange marmalade, dried apricot, that sort of stuff, that shows up in beers, beers, and kind of tired today, guys. Sorry, in wines like a Sauvignon Blanc, that's not uncommon. I'm not really getting anything grapey off of this beer, but sometimes that can show up in a triple too, which is delightful. Mm. Talking about wine makes me think. I think I get a little bit of oak off of this. This might have spent some time in a foeder, or maybe they use like pitch lined oak fermenters or something. I don't know actually. I mean, I taste it. I don't know if that's what I'm tasting and if that's where it comes from, but I get a little woody kind of pop to it. Anyway, um, it's obviously not a one to one swap, but in a lot of places where you might use like a drier, maybe slightly fruitier white wine, you could certainly try and use this instead. Um, it'll be different, but also very, very tasty. But yeah, if you were having like a lobster boil with like some nice, drawn butter and some sides, this would go really good with like steamed shellfish for sure. Talking about triples, so I should have actually brushed up on my history on this. I haven't talked about this in years. Um, and that's part of the reason why Stephen Beaumont wanted to make this month Belgian Beer Month, because they just don't get the attention they used to, unless it's a saison. If it's a saison, it gets plenty of attention. That's a Belgian style of beer. It's one that we won't probably do this month because I do saisons a lot anyway, and better to draw attention to some of the other styles. But what you get in Belgian beers, you can kind of think of them like in a hierarchy, and starting at the bottom, you have a blonde, which typically is around 5.5% alcohol, made with a Belgian ale yeast, which is going to have some serious esters to it. A lot of spices, same sort of things that you might sometimes get in wheat beers. Incidentally, also highly probable that it's going to have some wheat in the malt bill as well as barley. Not required, but it's often the case. Um, and then sometimes um, you can get other things, more with wit beers, like white beers. They'll put in like coriander and like orange peel and stuff. But there are instances, I believe, where you run into that with a what am I saying? With a blonde. Next up from that, so blonde again, 4.5 to 5.5, around 5.5 most of the time. You get a double, which is fun to spell because it's Dubbel. It's kind of funny. They tend to be quite dark. They often have some darkly roasted malts in them, and like they're brown to very dark brown in color, and therefore show some of those malt characteristics. You get more like dark fruit, dried fruit, jammy fruit. You can get darker bready notes like pumpernickel or like brown bread. Um, and then same yeast often, but interacts with those flavors in a much different way. And so often those spices become more evident somehow. And they also tend to be higher alcohol. And I think they normally kind of clock, well, like the next level up. So like 5.5 to sort of 6.5, 7-ish. Then you get triples, which is what we're drinking tonight. Triples tend to go back to golden, but they don't get as light as a blonde would. They tend to have a little tinge of orange to them. They've got something else interesting going on in there. But part of that is they often do. I was mentioning this probably has some sort of sugar in it, like dextrose. Candy sugar is the normal thing used in Belgian brewing in that context. So this is just like table sugar that you heat up to a certain point, and as sugar heats, obviously it melts. Well, I say obviously, maybe you didn't know that, but it does. It melts into a sticky mass, and it can boil, and then it'll start to kind of color. But as it hits different temperature things, if you get to a certain temperature, then cool it down. Structurally, the crystals in the sugar will align differently, and so even though it's chemically the same product, it behaves differently in certain contexts. So, for instance, candy sugar, I can't remember the temperature, but it's like I want to say it's like 320 degrees Fahrenheit. Can't remember that in Celsius off the top of my head. Um, but when you heat it up to that and then cool it back down, what you get is like a hard candy, like a you would open up the little, unwrap it like a like a humbug or a one of those strawberry candies. That hard, crunchy, often clear or like it's translucent, but it's very hard and crunchy, but still melts in your mouth. That's candy sugar that's been heated to that point and then cooled back down. So in Belgian brewing, it's not uncommon to use sugar that's had that process done to it. You normally get it either in like these kind of broken up chunks, or you can get it's liquid. I'm not sure how they do that. It's a syrup. It's not like water. It's quite thick, but it hasn't solidified. I don't know how that works. It might just have some water in it. I'm not sure. But anyway, you add that to the beer, and the beauty is it's like completely fermentable. Brewer's yeast loves that stuff, just eats it up. So what you get is a drier beer with a higher alcohol content, because none of that sugar ends up in the end product. Though you will still get some of those flavor components from the process, they get left behind. So that's why you can often taste a bit of like sugariness in these beers. Anyway, that's to say, I was just explaining what went in, and I forgot what even what we were talking about. Triples, though, they tend to be again that sort of 7.5 up to maybe around 9%. This one's 8. Uh, They are warming, typically very complex beers. I needed a sip of this one. It's really apricotty. It's it's very apricotty in a delightful way, and peachy, and a little apple blossomy for sure. Oh yeah, maybe some green apple in there. So good. Mm. And that little warm linger of sugar on the finish, quite nice. After that, you get a quadruple. We will probably do a quadruple on the podcast in the next 3 weeks. That's just a guess. Quads again tend to go back into that darker category, although they don't necessarily go as dark as some of the doubles. Some do, but they don't have to. But they get big in the 10% range. They're often very jammy, dark fruit, dried fruit, a lot of spices, but you can also start getting leathery notes, some umami out of them, which is a bit of a mind trip. Um, really couldn't come up with another word there. Like I said, I'm a little tired tonight. Uh, but yeah, so quads get crazy. Now you can get these beers from many breweries, but where most people tend to want to get them from, if they're getting them from Europe and now America, is from an actual Trappist brewery. It's um, what's the word? An apple. I always want to say appellation. That's the mountains. I see. I can't do it. It just doesn't come out. But one of those things where it's a culturally protected item, a little like champagne. Um, so it used to be there was only seven, but now they're up to like 14 or 15 certified Trappist breweries in the world. Also used to be that six of them were in Belgium and one of them was in the Netherlands, I think. There are more now. I think there's one in Germany. I think there's one in England, and there's definitely one in the US. It's in upstate New York. But anyway, the key here is these are beers that are being made by actual Trappist monks, like practicing Trappist monks in a functioning Trappist brewery. And part of the deal is the proceeds of the sale of the beer have to go towards supporting the life and ministry uh, of the what's the word I'm looking for here? The monastery. I was thinking church. Um, as I noted earlier, it's not just Trappist breweries. There are Trappist monasteries that make cheese. I think there's some that make bread. There might be some that make wine. I'm not sure about that. I'm just speculating here, but they do make a variety of things. But in our context, obviously, we're mostly interested in the beer. Le Trappe from Koningshoeven, that's the Dutch one, and it is exceptional. Their quad is also yeah, they do a quad. It's also very good. It's not my favorite. And in fact, if I can lay hands on my favorite, that's what we'll do. Most famously, West Veletrin 12 is a quad. It's the one that people often talk about. It's very good, but I've tasted it blind with a couple of others, and it was not my top pick. But we'll discuss that more when we do quads eventually. In the meantime, this is a delightful triple, as noted. Le Trappe triple Koningshoeven. As I said, you buy this at the LCBO. Um, Look it up on the app, but it's everywhere. It's got pretty good distribution. Um, and yeah, this is a fantastic beer. The other interesting thing about a beer like this, you can age this a bit, and not a bit, a lot. We haven't talked about aging beers too much on the podcast recently because I tend to drink things like IPAs, which you don't want to age, or like lagers, which have aged a little bit to begin with. But once they're ready, you don't want to wait on them. You just get them in you. But a triple like this at 8%, I can't speak specifically to this one, this particular triple. I don't mean this specific bottle, but I mean Koningshoeven, La Trappe. Uh, but many actually do at least change in an interesting way, if not in a good slash better way, with a bit of time. Sometimes some of that alcoholic heat drops. In other cases, it becomes more pronounced. It's hard to say. One of the impacts is that the character of the hop does tend to change in it. It's one of the more volatile flavor compounds, and what happens when that changes, anybody's guess, but it can be very interesting. In a caged and corked bottle like that, it will age for years if you want with that alcohol content. Age it somewhere cool. Maybe a refrigerator, that would be fine, or a cool basement. Don't put it near the furnace. That's stupid. Don't store it in the front window. That's also stupid. But yeah, you can age these ones a bit. So you could I mean, some people do where you get like 3 or 4 bottles and you drink one now and make notes, and then you drink one in 6 months and make notes, and then in a year and then in 2 or something like that, if you feel really geeky. Or you can just buy one now and drink it and eat some mussels and be pretty happy with your life. I would recommend that. Mm-mm-mm. Well, guys, I am tired tonight. Uh, been I don't want to say it, it just sounds so stupid. Been exercising a lot. Let's go with that. And I'm just tired. I'm tired and I have to eat so dang much. Do you know how hard it is to eat 110 grams of protein a day when you don't eat meat? Yeah, I do. Believe me, I do. Anyhow, yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna shut it down. There's events probably coming up. I think I even saw some I felt like I should have made a note of, as always. This is the part of the show where I pretend like this is the first time this has ever happened. But in fact, indeed, I probably should have been more attentive. Tune in next week for another Belgian or Belgian style beer. What will it be? Only time will tell. Will it be good? You darn right it'll be good. It'll be fantastic. But yeah, in the meantime, be good out there. Take it easy. If you're in the United States of America and you are listening to this live, or are you listening to it on the day it came out, aka November the 8th, 2022, that's when it'll be out on the podcast player of your choice. Please go vote. I was going to say I don't care how you vote, but that's not entirely true. I hope you vote in the best interests of the people who are most vulnerable in your community, which is to say, probably voting for somebody who's willing to spend some money on them. Uh, if you want to vote in your own self interests and just try and get lower taxes, that's cool, but have fun with the results. I'll say no more on that. If you are in the United States, go ahead, get out there and vote, please. And otherwise, wherever you are, I hope you have a great evening. I hope you stay safe as COVID's ramping back up, they tell us in the news. And hopefully you don't have a cold like me. And if you do, I hope you feel better soon and you can taste your beer to its fullest extent. Other than that, Rob Currie is going to take us home just like always. Check the link in the bio. That album is for sale. The Halloween album also for sale. My golly, what a great time to be alive. This is Link Ray Gun by Rob Currie and the Currie Brothers, and I have been Chris Schreier on the Toronto Beer Podcast. I will talk to you next week.